If there is a God, he loves fractals. A Mescaline, LSD, DMT and XLR-11 trip report, posted by Crazy Engineer to earwid.org, September 10th, 2014. Having a fair bit of experience with LSD and DMT, I wanted to try something new for New Year's Eve. My friend and I each took 500mg of mescaline hydrochloride, which we put into gelatin capsules. Having read that mescaline causes nausea, I took it with 30ml of Pepto-Bismol. He took 15ml at first. We were accompanied by another friend who took 2 tabs of LSD, rated at 100 micrograms each. My friend and I are relatively small people, about 120 pounds and 5'5". I am on 10mg of escitalopram. He isn't on any medication at all though. The friend who took the 2 tabs is on 20mg of citalopram. Effects are noticed within the first 30 minutes. It hits about 10 minutes before my friend who took acid felt anything. As the effects build up, so does the nausea. It is quite bearable, mostly an upset stomach and general discomfort. I note that the mescaline is very different from acid in terms of how it hits. It is constant and gradual, and there doesn't seem to be any peaks or high points, like my friend on 2 tabs is experiencing. He's cranked up and energetic, while my friend and I feel incredibly peaceful. The visuals are fairly strong, as far as the visuals I've experienced on acid were like. Christmas lights outside seem brighter, and everything is breathing and warping, and when I look at my carpet with flower patterns on it, it appears as though the flowers are swaying within the wind. The effects continuously build in intensity. About 2 hours in, my nausea is gone. My friend still feels ill, and takes another 15ml of Pepto-Bismol. Within 30 minutes he's totally fine. If I were to do this again, I think going above the recommended 30ml to something like 45ml would have been more effective. Neither of us felt all that uncomfortable though, and neither of us felt the need to vomit, so I suppose that was a happy success. It is interesting to note that relative to LSD, mescaline does not seem to affect one's cognitive abilities nearly as much. A little focus is all that are required to have a regular conversation and appear relatively normal. I didn't necessarily have the desire to do so, as it is much more enjoyable to be silent and take things in, but purchasing cigarettes was a far simpler matter on mescaline than when peaking on LSD. At about the 3-hour mark, my friend on mescaline smokes some marijuana. I smoke a moderate amount of 5-FUR-144, a synthetic cannabinoid that acts like marijuana at low doses, and more like acid at high doses, synesthesia, mild hallucinations, etc. We both begin to see traces. The effect is quite like looking at stereoscopic 3D images that requires red and blue glasses to see. Outlines around everything are obscured by multicoloured traces. This effect subsides after 30 minutes or so, and we're back to the standard effects of the mescaline. A wonderful sense of calm, enhanced colours, warping of patterns and breathing. Our friend on acid eventually leaves, and we're about 4 hours into the mescaline trip. It's feeling as though it is more or less levelling off, so we decide to turn things up. We each take 1 tab of LSD, rated at 100 micrograms each. We feel the acid come on quickly. The calmness of the mescaline is being overridden by the speedy edginess of acid. Our visuals start getting much stronger. Colour intensity is 3 times that of the mescaline alone. Mild LSD-like fractals appear in patterns on the ceiling, but to a fairly minor extent. When the heating system within the house turns on, I hear fast and beautiful guitar solos within my head. My friend, of course, does not hear them. It is merely my mind reinterpreting generic whirs of the rushing air as something very beautiful. The music sounds like nothing I've ever heard before. It's very fast and intricate. I'd never be able to replicate it on paper or hum it, as it's going so quickly, and I don't have the necessary musical talent to transcribe it. About an hour or so into the acid, or so I believe, we haven't really been paying as much time to the clocks aside from whether or not the new year has arrived. We freebase about 50mg out of the machine, which is effectively just a glorified crack pipe with some steel wool. It did not hit anything like DMT typically does. The changes between the two of us off of tinfoil and then A in visuals were very, very minimal. However, the change in our headspace was drastic. The edginess of the acid was totally removed, to be replaced with the sort of single-mindedness that DMT provides. The calm from the mescaline was back stronger than it was before. The next 40 minutes or so feel like a prolonged DMT trip with the mescaline and LSD hybridized visuals. This is very enjoyable, and seems to redirect the trip from a general craziness into a focused and calm direction of external information. It is hard to put into words. As the effects of the DMT seem to subside, I elect to smoke a rather substantial portion of 5-FUR-144, and my friend smokes the last of his marijuana. He also takes a very small amount of 5-FUR-144 as well. At this point, things start getting crazy. My visuals immediately go into hyperdrive. The traces come back 7 or 8 times stronger. The edges around my friend are warping along the edges of his face, flowing along his bone and muscle structure. The traces themselves are constantly changing colour, and consist of 3 to 4 layers in constant movement that look much like something from Apocalypto or Maori tattoos. His hair is warping and twisting. He looks very intense, with this sort of psychedelic war paint superimposed over him. Looking around the room, things seem to be resembling Mayan or Incan art. I'm not a religious person per se. I used to be a hardline atheist, and prior to this experience, I would describe myself as agnostic, open to the idea of a higher power. But I was absolutely opposed to any organised religious interpretation of what that power actually is. I've always just viewed chemicals as chemicals. Mescaline was just another drug. At this point though, the imagery I'm seeing in my carpet gets warped into is so strikingly similar to ancient runes and designs from that region of the world that I begin to have my doubts. My friend looks like some sort of ancient warrior, and the plant behind him is warping into amazing designs that at the time seemed to be very mathematically designed. We put on some white noise in the background. We both stopped talking for the majority of the next 3 hours. We both are overwhelmed by sensory input and experience an amazing euphoria. I hear these constant piano solos and other forms of incredibly intricate music within my mind. The synesthesia I'm experiencing is beautiful. I look at something with lots of colour and hear more noise. I look at something simple and the noise is greatly reduced. Everything I look at now has this amazing, beautiful simplicity to it. My friend and I feel that the room we are in is perfect in every single way. As I look to my ceiling, I see incredible, intricate fractals being formed out of the material of the ceiling. They are constantly changing and wonderfully complex. They tessellate with one another, and are beyond virtually anything I have ever seen online. I'm able to control them with my mind, and can have them form anything I imagine within my mind's eye. Over the course of the 3 hours, I found myself contemplating things about life, humanity, God, and the universe. I feel as though I'm lost within the imagination of my childhood, and before me, my every thought is animated on the ceiling. The most profound portion of this experience was when my friend and I were looking at my bookshelf. We were so overwhelmed by this incredible sense of calm, wisdom, and knowledge. It was strange. Without even opening the books, we felt better, smarter. A sense of acceptance and peace that I have never felt so close to experiencing in my life. It was incredibly fulfilling and spiritual. I felt amazing. It simply cannot be put into words though. I recall thinking to myself, this is why we have artists. To put feelings and emotions into forms that cannot be expressed by words. I'm still able to recall that calmness. It is the closest I have ever had to a religious experience. In that moment, I said to my friend, if acid makes me feel beyond a doubt that there is no God, mescaline makes me think that if he does exist, he sure loves math and fractals. After the 3 hours, things went back to the standard mescaline visuals of warping and mild colour intensity. We smoked some more 5-FUR-144 a few more times, and get similar, though lesser in intensity experiences. I can honestly say that this was one of the best experiences of my life. I've never expected this from any sort of drug. All in all, the whole thing lasted about 10 hours. I took a codeine tablet before heading to bed, and was able to fall asleep within 1 to 2 hours. My friend did not take one, and he was up for the rest of the night, which is about 7 hours. Bloody hell, that was a mental combination of chemicals right there. That might be the maddest combo I've covered on the channel yet. Interestingly enough, it seemed like each of the chemicals, in some of them hybridized, like he said that the LSD and mescaline hybridized in a sense, so they sort of complemented each other, but all the other ones seemed to just like dominate the experience or cancel out the other one. So yeah, when he talks about that 5-FUR-144, that's actually a synthetic cannabinoid, or it's one of the chemicals that they find in synthetic cannabis in the plant material. It's most often referred to as XLR-11. When I talk about synthetic cannabinoids, probably the most famous brand is probably Spice. Anyone who lives in the UK knows how there was like a spice epidemic a few years ago. Probably still is going just as bad, and I can 110% advise you not to be doing this at all. Like, I find it interesting that this guy is so up for like influencing the trip with this XLR-11 chemical, when I'd say most people in the right mind could not think of anything worse to combine with the trips. Like, synthetic cannabinoids, if you don't know, can have some extremely horrendous effects on your mind and body, lasting effects that can completely debilitate you, physically, mentally, or both. Really not something you ought to be doing, to be honest. I cannot vouch at all. I've talked about it quite a while ago that I actually accidentally ended up smoking it twice when I was younger, because obviously it was a cheaper alternative. Was it even cheaper? I don't know, but it was a legal alternative to, say, smoking marijuana. And I remember ages ago when I was in year 11, and this was in like 2014, I was first like, oh no, 2015. It was the very first night I ever took a psychedelic, which ended up funnily being 25i, and then I was like, oh fuck's sake, I've just gone and taken pseudo acid. Oh, let's just have a joint and see if it'll chill me out. Ended up smoking fucking pseudo cannabis, and it was like some spice shit, or called like cherry bomb, because they used to sell them in head shops before they got outlawed. So then it absolutely sent me. I felt horrible. And then another time I've spoken about it was when I went to this festival called Kendall Calling, and lo and behold, thought I was having a joint, and then someone was smoking fucking synthetic cannabinoids again, and just had like a absolute, just complete mental breakdown. Visually, mentally, physically, completely annihilated me. I literally thought I was gonna die. I thought someone was doing fucking the Ludovico technique off Clockwork Orange on me when I was in the welfare tent. I was ready to write my will, or, well, I wouldn't even be leaving much in that will, it'd be like 5p. But yeah, completely destroyed me. I would never recommend mixing this with all them other chemicals. I wouldn't even recommend doing... I mean, at the end of the day, I wouldn't recommend it, but if you're going to do it, you're going to do it, aren't you? What can I really say? All I can do is just advise you against it and say I do not think you should be doing it at all. You can just... This guy didn't even go... It's great. I'm glad this guy obviously had a great experience. Obviously, towards the end, it really started to capture my attention when he sort of started reconsidering his ideas about God and the universe, when he sort of saw like the inherent sort of tribalistic South American, like Mayan, Incan, Aztec energy that mescaline has. Again, this sort of ties in with people say that psychedelics sort of have their own personality. And it's interesting that he said he thought that he was very sure that there was no God when he took LSD, because I know for some people, say when they take a synthetic psychedelic like LSD, obviously it's derived from ergot, but you know what I mean, the actual chemical of lysergic acid diethylamide is synthesized, and they sort of feel like it's there's less of like an earthly spiritual quality to it. I personally, that doesn't apply to me at all. It gets probably some of our most extremely spiritual experiences on LSD, but yeah, some people don't actually get that, and they're very much sure of themselves that, oh, this is all just being generated by the brain, and it's just another showcase of how sort of extremely complex the brain is and how we don't understand it. But then they'll take something like a bit like mescaline, or mushrooms, or DMT, and then they'll sort of start to lean towards the other side of like, oh, maybe there is some sort of like extra dimensional power or powers out there that is running the scenes, etc., and say maybe the universe is maybe some giant thinking conscious thing. Then another thing I really enjoyed that he talked about was how basically towards the end of the trip, when there was just so many like chemicals running through him, it was his consciousness was basically leaning further from like the human state of consciousness. Obviously we can imagine stuff. I can imagine stuff with my mind's eye now. I can literally imagine some like giant in crazy fantasy world. It's incredible, isn't it, what you can do with your mind's eye and the power of imagination, even just within the sober human state. But then add bloody mescaline, LSD, DMT, and XLR-11 into it, and your imagination basically becomes sort of godlike, where you can. I've had it before, and I know many other people have, especially say towards when you're on your own, more so towards the end of a night, and when you've been tripping and like, you're laying in bed and you're just sort of like focusing on your ceiling and everything, and you're literally creating like worlds on the ceiling, sort of becomes like a giant canvas. And this gets very profound for me because it makes me think that reality, the universe, say the universe with a capital U, our universe and any other universe, all the multiverses in one, the giant, the oneness of reality that all the religions, non-dualists and psychedelic sort of mystical reports talk about, is that maybe reality is literally just this giant infinite canvas, and it's being created on the fly infinitely through consciousness, and that we are literally all doing that at the same time. That's why sort of the division between self and other is an illusion, because we are literally, it's just one thing creating itself, and the aspect of that, and an aspect of that is creating another, but the other actually is just itself. Whoa, getting pretty deep, bruh. But yeah, it makes so much sense to me. Like when you're a kid, even when you're a child, when you're looking out the window at school or whatever, and you're just imagining like, I just used to imagine myself being in like Legend of Zelda world and actually literally feeling like I'm being there, and even in your dreams you can experience this. Who's to say that, I mean, if there is, well, there's obviously more conscious beings out there in the universe. I mean, let's just say that is fact, because I mean, we don't need any evidence for that. It's fucking infinite, isn't it? Like, there's definitely giant aliens, not even giant aliens, but maybe small aliens out there with brains that work so much more complex than us. There's probably like energy beings or whatever, or maybe aliens are energy beings, all these like bloody things in the Tic Tacs flying throughout the sky and that. Maybe they are just energy beings that are travelling through dimensions and etc., not just like little grey people who've created some little Tic Tac machine that they jump in. Say, imagine their consciousness. What are they able to do? And then there'll be stuff even beyond them, because I mean, at the end of the day, like, I think we are starting to sort of get on the same page now when I do say this stuff, like, reality is infinite. It's literally infinite. Consciousness can imagine itself as anything it wants to. That's exactly why I say when you're on salvia or whatever, you can imagine yourself as literally an envelope or something inanimate, because there's no limits. Why would there be any limits to consciousness? Why would, say if consciousness is God / the universe, why would it want to limit itself? It would just want to experience anything and everything. And then think of how lower down the human consciousness is, yet we're already able to do this amazing thing like fucking make AI videos of Joe Biden saying he loves furries and that. It's just amazing, isn't it? The potential is incredible. And then think of like some other Earth-like planet or any planet where there's some super advanced civilization. The imagination they can, not even the imagination, but like the levels of like creativity that they're able to do. I don't think it's really out of the realm possibility that some conscious beings can literally imagine things into existence. I know we're getting pretty woo-woo now, but you've got to understand that if you research more about life and everything, and psychedelics and mysticism and everything, psychic abilities, telekinesis, telepathy and all this stuff, I mean, it's definitely possible. Aren't there any humans who can do it? I don't know, I've not seen them, but I've definitely seen a lot of like compelling arguments for it. And also seen lots of videos like that Russian woman, I can't exactly remember what her name was. She was in the Soviet Union. She could like, there's literally videos of her like maneuvering stuff around like telekinesis and that. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But it obviously was interesting enough for it to be researched by, say, the Soviet Union and the CIA and everything. So there probably is a bit of credence to it. Not saying whether it's true or not, because yeah, I would like to actually see it very much in person, but you just got to be open to this sort of stuff, haven't you? And The fact that psychedelics can manipulate your consciousness so far away from literally just not being a human anymore, like verbatim, you are not a human, means that, mate, literally can just go on forever, the potential for consciousness and doing these things. And maybe in the giant, very, very, very meta, ultimate truth sort of aspect, God is just like an infinite dreamer, and it can just dream anything on the fly. It doesn't need any substance. It doesn't need to like, oh, I need to create these atoms and then this thing and then that'll complement that thing. It's like it all just is one thing being created on the fly. Or maybe completely wrong, who knows. But yeah, another ramble, another day, another trip report. So yep, hope you guys enjoyed this one, and don't be taking any XLR-11 or I'll be coming around your house and telling you off.